Hello, you're welcome to yet another time in our GMAT class. And in this video, I'm going to be showing us how to solve yet another data sufficiency question. And if you have not watched our video on this question, please do well to go and watch the video. The video will help you a lot. The video will help you very well. So please do well to watch the first video, as it will give you a better understanding as you watch this one. I recall that in the first video I said when you are solving data sufficiency question, in the option you will find that there are uppercase words which is very instrumental to your decision making. And in this question, or in any question, if there are arithmetic work to be done, do the arithmetic work first, because the arithmetic work is going to also be a leading, is going to put you in the path of positive decision making. It's very important you do all this. Now, in this question, you see the cost of certain phone call was 0.75 for the first 3 minutes and $0.20 for each additional minute after the first 3 minutes. Now, the phone call lasts longer than 15 minutes. There are fact check here, or there are helpful tips here. We are told here that the phone call lasts longer. You can underline this. You can underline this: lasts longer than 15 minutes. We are told the phone call lasts longer than 15 minutes. You underline that. It's a helpful tip. It's a path in the right direction. Now look at the statement. The cost of the phone call was less than $4.16. That's statement 1. Statement 2 says the cost of the phone call was greater than $3.35. Now, how do we go about solving this? There is something very helpful here. We have been told that the period of the call, the time of the call is more than 15 minutes. It means it doesn't have any boundary range. So we look at the statement 1 that says that it's less than this. How can we say it's less than 4.16 when there is no boundary range? If it has a boundary range, if we are told that the call lasts between 15 and 19, between 15 and 20, then we can say, okay, any cost that exceed the upper boundary, which is 19, will be said to be wrong. And any cost that is, lower than the lower boundary will also be said to be wrong. But we are just told that the call lasts longer than 15 minutes. So we don't have any idea of how the call lasts. And for that reason, we cannot say that certain value, will be less than the call, because we don't have an idea of how long the call lasts. So in a nutshell, we can draw an inference from this information here to say that statement 1 is not sufficient at all. But let us just go ahead to solve it, because even when we say statement 1 alone is not sufficient, it may not be enough for us to quickly decide. But if we are used to these types of information, we can just go straight to the option and pick our answer. Because since we already know that statement 1 alone is not sufficient from what is said here, because if we are going to do some mathematics work here, we could just say 4.16 minus 0.75. This gives us 3.41. This is the total cost for the additional time that was spent after the first 3 minutes. Please recall that this 0.75 is the cost for the first 3 minutes. Not that the first 3 minutes cost 0.75 each. No. 0.75 is the total cost for the first 3 minutes. That's why we say 4.16 minus this. So when we look at this, since additional time a minute after the first 3 minutes is 0.2, so we divide by 0.2. This is times 10 here give us 34, times 10 here give us 2. So the extra time spent, or additional minutes spent after the first 3 minutes, is 17 minutes. So statement 1 is telling us that the time of the entire cost did not exceed 20 minutes. Because if 17 minutes is the additional time, and we already have first 3 minutes here, this is first 3 minutes. and this is the additional minute. So statement 1 is telling us that the entire time of the call did not exceed 20 minutes. So invariably, statement 1 is not sufficient at all. Then if we look at statement 2 is saying that it is greater than this amount. So if we look at 3.35 minus 0.75, this is 0, this is 6, this is 2.6 divided by 0.2, which is times 10, 26 times 10 to 13. So for statement 2, we can deduce that statement 2 is saying that the entire cost is greater than 16 minutes, because this is the first 3 minutes, this additional 13 minutes, 16 minutes, and since the information here says last longer than 15 minutes, it makes sense to say that the call lasted more than 16 minutes, because we have 13 plus 3, 16, and this is already longer than 15. So statement 2 alone is sufficient. But let's go to the option. And recall I said, anywhere we are told that statement 1 is sufficient, we rule it out because it doesn't make sense. So statement 1 alone is sufficient, but statement 2, so we rule A out completely. Statement 1 alone is not sufficient at all, because it has told us that it is less than this when we don't even have a boundary range for this information. The information is just static. It's saying that it's so infinity. We can say it's just infinity. It's just, we don't know. We cannot determine it. So A is wrong. Then we come here, statement 2 alone is sufficient, but statement 1 alone is not sufficient. We mark this first. But we are progressing because the most correct is the one we choose. We go to 3, C. Both statements together are sufficient, wrong. Both statements together are not sufficient, because statement 1 is not sufficient, but statement 2 is sufficient. So both are not sufficient. We go to D. Each statement alone is not sufficient. This is also wrong, because each statement alone cannot be said not to be sufficient, because statement 2 is sufficient, but statement 1 is not sufficient. So we cannot say that because statement 1 is not sufficient, statement 2 is also not sufficient. Individually, 2 alone is sufficient. Then E, statements 1 and 2 together are not sufficient. This is also not correct, because if we bring them together, we will not say that both of them together are not sufficient, because 2 is still sufficient as it is, because from the arithmetic work, 2 is sufficient, 2 is reasonable, 2 is open to more time. But statement 1 is not open to more time. It has just told us that it is less than this, saying that any cost beyond this or at this is wrong. But then the information here says longer than 15 minutes. So from all this indication, so B is the most correct answer. I hope you understand how I made this thing very easy. Recall that these uppercase words are very useful. They are very, very useful. This uppercase word alone. Look at here, statement 1 alone. This is what is helping me to make my decision. Statement 2 alone. Both statements together are not. That's why I said it's wrong, because both together cannot be said to be sufficient. Then here I say each statement alone is not sufficient. It's also not correct, because each statement alone, 2 is sufficient, but 1 is not sufficient. So that's how to, you must be very logical in answering GMAT data sufficiency question. But very, very logical. You must have the skill to preempt an answer. You must be able to deduce where the pendulum is swinging as you start reading the information, especially when it has arithmetic work. Please quickly do the arithmetic work first, because when you get the arithmetic information, it will help you a great deal in taking your decision. Thank you so much. I hope you love this video. If you love this video, please subscribe to our channel, tell your friends about it, and join us as we do another class.